Welcome to the Long Strange Trip. I'm Josh, the host of the show. We're going to dig into 6 areas together, finding real work-life integration instead of that brutal 95-5 split too many business owners live with. We're going to approach retirement as an actual reinvention rather than just stopping work. And we're facing death honestly and avoiding PTSD around it. We're also building resilience when life throws us curveballs. We're sharing wisdom across generations. And finally, we're understanding the patterns that show up in all our transitions. I'm not coming at this as an expert. I'm a fellow traveler, figuring this stuff out in real time, especially now as I navigate my own dual cancer diagnosis at 73. Welcome to the Long Strange Trip. I'm glad you're here. Hey, how are you today? This is Josh Patrick, and you're at the Long Strange Trip podcast. And today we are in for a real treat. We have my friend Adam Hansen here. Oh gosh, I met Adam, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago at some strange seminar on, I forgot what it was on, but we ended up sitting in the bar talking for about 3 or 4 hours. And his compatriot who was sitting next to Adam, I don't think understood 3 words we were saying, but it was one of the more interesting conversations I've had. And over the years, I've stayed in contact with Adam, and he's really one of the most interesting people I know and one of the most wise people I know. So today we're going to talk with Adam about the topic of wisdom. And I have no idea where it's going to go, but I'm going to bet it'll be someplace fun and for you and fun for me. So let's bring Adam on the show. Hey, Adam, how are you?
Josh, if it got any better, I'd be just horribly equipped for it. It's life is just an overabundance of wonderfulness and delight, and it's that might be a little delusional, but it works for me.
Well, that's good. You know, if you ask most people how are they, you'll get this non-committal okay answer, which is, what most people are probably feeling, which I think, is a little bit too sad, but it is what it is.
I mean, it's just some of the basic social niceties that we're instructed in, and that response never made a whole lot of sense to me.
Oh, okay. Can you give me an example of that?
Well, just it's I'm no paragon of self-awareness as I sit here cross-armed, but just I've always been interested in the things that we just accept, just like the basic assumptions that we make. I understand why most of them kind of played out the way they did, but it's I think life can be really rich if you are just even 10% more intentional.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. So our topic today is wisdom. So if somebody like me was to ask you, how do you gain wisdom? What would your answer be?
I think wisdom is kind of, it's a lot of things. It's grace applied to imperfection. And by grace, I don't mean any kind of sectarian grace, but just overall, just grace, just unearned merit, it's allowing space for others to kind of do their thing and realizing because we're all such finite creatures, we're all trying to figure this stuff out, and so realizing that, we know how much we can fill out on our own behalf, and yet sometimes forget that others face the same dilemma. And so it's I think grace applied to imperfection is that's kind of my starting point. I think it's also about, there's this idea that wisdom comes with age, and it certainly can. And I certainly am wiser now than I was, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, whatever. But I think the real booster in that is not just aging and not just accumulating more experience, but actually it's back to that sense of being intentional. I think wisdom, it can really be boosted by metabolizing experience and by
So when you say metabolizing experience, can you give us a definition of that?
um, um, let's say I'm talking to anyone, it could be a business partner, it could be a family member, whatever. Conversation didn't go really well for some reason, and I'm not sure why, but kind of in the heat of the moment, we know that that's often we're going geeky now, folks. We're going into neurology here. In the heat of the moment, that stuff is often coming from the amygdala, like our fear center, our fight or flight. Uh, it When the amygdala is triggered, the prefrontal cortex, the wiser part of us, tends to be. The amygdala just says, "Yeah, you can go take a nap." Prefrontal cortex, and I'm going to take over now, and that the fear tends to limit options. It impels action, which is good. I mean, fear was everything we experience is there for a reason. And so fear, that's not to be construed as a negative. It's information, but we need to understand the mechanics of it, and it does what it does. And so conversation with a loved one or whomever didn't go all that great. Just taking even, Josh, 3 minutes to think it over and kind of replay it and kind of revise it maybe in our own mind and say, yeah, if I'd made these two small choices, it would have made a real difference. And it's not giving up our own agency prematurely. It's not assuming that we're just subject to all the forces and events around us. But yeah, I'm just kind of pontificating now. Did that answer? Did that at least make a start?
It made a start. So wisdom, I believe, generally comes with age, but age does not automatically create wisdom.
I was just having this conversation with a friend earlier today. The I was always skeptical of the saying, "You can't teach an old dog new tricks." And I said, I get what's going on there, but I don't know if age is necessarily the variable there. I think it's more about curiosity. And I would agree, it's less likely you're going to be able to teach an incurious dog new tricks.
Well, one of the things that I think, which is a key, and I'm not sure this is 100% true because we're doing an investigation here,
Yes.
is that wisdom without curiosity cannot exist.
I think it's dead on. The big three for me are curiosity, and that probably starts with humility, curiosity, and then never letting the kind of an unquenchable light of play be extinguished from us. Play isn't a kid thing. Wisdom isn't necessarily an old person thing. We all know, and just a way to bust the age and wisdom thing is, can we all think of younger people who are wise?
Yes, I have a son who's wise.
Can we all think of
He's 40.
Yeah, and can we think of older people who aren't necessarily all that wise?
Well, I know most older people are not wise. I mean, most older people they're stuck into their worldview.
Yeah, and worldview too quickly becomes the next step from just basic worldview is identity. And now that's not just how I see things, that is me. And now everything that happens to me is going to be shot through that lens.
Yes.
And I don't want to be captive. I'm to some self concept like that. I think it's helpful to always to be ready to trade up and realize that we are works in action. And the moment that we believe that that's not the case, well, then physical death is just kind of
do we respect others as human beings is a good starting place.
Yeah.
Because what I see in today's world is the far left. Everybody in the far right is a terrible human being, no matter what you say.
Yeah.
And on the far right, the MAGA folks, everybody on the left is even worse. So, and they're stuck in that place. And I think it's because they have zero curiosity about the others.
Yeah. Well, and it's what is the emotional payoff for you to see those other people that way? And I guess here in the United States, I would say, look, we made some basic agreements, at the founding of the country and everything, and we have this Latin motto, "E pluribus unum." And do we actually believe that? Like, do we think from many one? And do we think that because of the many, because of the difference in views and experiences and backgrounds and everything from how we were raised to how we were taught to get along with others and everything, it's the sum total of all those different perspectives that can make this really amazing. And we are stronger when we remember "E pluribus unum" and not just unum, unum, unum.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So, I would consider you a pretty wise guy.
Well, listen how you say that. I am wise.
Not as a wise guy, but as a person who has gained a ton of wisdom over their lifetime.
Well, that's kind of you. Well,
I think it's pretty much, I would say it's pretty obvious anybody spends any time with you, but that's, my opinion, and maybe I'm wrong because I have been before. I think that one of the things that you said, humility is an important part of wisdom.
Yeah.
I think vulnerability is also another keystone of it. If you're not willing to be vulnerable, you're not going to be very wise because you're pretty much fixed into your beliefs.
Yeah. And like, what is it exactly that you're protecting? Like, why, and what's the need for protection there? What bets are you making about how the universe is constructed? They almost have to have this defensive posture and just a little bit of a reflection on who we are. Like, just if you're gonna get caught in identity, go back to who we are as a species, and we're that badass strain of DNA that can hack any environment. You don't see the disparities in no other species. Do you see the equivalents of a Simone Biles and a Django Reinhardt and just pick your list of geniuses of disparate talents, and you don't see anything like that in any other species. And that's kind of like, I think that the reason why good old Carl Linnaeus back in the day, probably the reason why he coined the species name for us as Homo sapiens sapiens, is it because it was the Enlightenment and thinking, intelligence was really at a premium then. And I get it. I think Homo sapiens sapiens, like, just to make it really clear, sapiens and sapiens.
Sapiens and what?
Well, our name is fully Homo sapiens sapiens, and the last one is like the lowest taxonomic level, right?
Yeah.
But I think if we could reclassify ourselves, I think a species name that I think better describes who we are, I think, is Homo faber, making.
Which means?
Making, so kind of inventive, Homo faber socialis.
Yeah.
And our social intelligence is off the charts compared to any other species. Other animals do have some social intelligence and everything. It's how they organize. It's how, but pre-verbal human babies learn from each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you just don't see, I don't know that you see pups necessarily getting a whole lot from each other
I think puppies actually do learn from each other, but not at the level
Yeah,
human beings
yeah.
do.
And there's just so much that we pick up on. There was there's just this great Joan Hendricks book, The Secret of Our Success, makes that point that talks about the research that compared an orangutan, a chimp, and a human toddler, and compared them on quantitative, spatial, um, and there are two other types. Social was one of them. I can't remember what the fourth intelligence was,
Yeah.
but the human toddler, the chimp, and the orangutan were pretty much tracking on the first three. And then it was on social intelligence where even the human toddler just separate, put so much distance between it and the other two species. And so I think this Joe's book was social intelligence or culture is the secret of our success as a species. And I think that's interesting to me. And so how can I always increase my social intelligence? How can I become more effective? How can I become more empathetic? How can I, as long as we have these pesky humans with their blasted feelings, you know, we probably ought to be paying attention to how we can be more empathetic, how we can increase our intelligence is just the ability to right. So how do we increase our capability to act by being more empathetic? I
So
don't think I'm ever gonna have the final answer on that.
I don't think there is a final answer on that. I think it's an ongoing investigation, which is wonderful for us because that's what we do here. We investigate.
That's right.
And, it's really interesting that there's an awful lot of people who are stuck in where they are.
Yeah.
And it's really sad because there's a great big world out there which you could be curious about. And there's a great big world out there that might have different ways of looking at things than you do.
Yeah.
And that goes for both the left and the right, by the way. It's not just a right thing that left people think.
Well, you put your finger on it. I mean, the moment that we overassign virtue or capability or whatever to one particular identification, then I mean, come on, we act according to maps of reality, not reality itself, because we can't. No one of us can fully take in just full reality. But some maps are better than other maps, and the maps that consistently place those other people over in the side of what we don't want. That's a really low resolution map. You can find the evidence, sure, but you're not looking hard at all for the evidence that contravenes where you're going with that.
Right, right. One of my favorite questions would be, what would happen if?
Yeah.
And one of my favorite sayings, which is an NLP saying, I think, is the map is not the territory.
Map is not the territory. Yeah. But we can't operate without a map. So
that's true.
We do need to have that. It can be extremely helpful, but we should just as we should probably always question our maps. We should never get too satisfied with them. We should never believe that we have kind of the ultimate stranglehold on reality with them. But being open, it was the supposedly was it Longfellow or Wadsworth, whoever said, be curious, not judgmental.
Yes.
It was for those fans of the TV show Ted Lasso, just a great episode where Ted kind of lays that out and proceeds to kick someone's butt in a dart game.
That is my favorite scene from that show.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, that is like the best scene of all times.
Yeah, it was just choreographed. I think is maybe the better term. It's choreographed so exquisitely, but yeah, it's
so exquisite.
It's keeping that openness. It's keeping. No one said that we had to have everything totally pinned down before we could take action. You know, it's in the moving that we get the insight, that we gain the wisdom. And so one of the things I'd say about wisdom is that there's this construct in neuroscience called 4E cognition. I'll just do this quickly. Nerd alert. So cognition, it's 4 E's. So it's embodied, meaning that cognition isn't just a brain in a vat. Cognition is also out to the ends of our arms and fingertips and how we move and everything. So it's embodied, it's embedded in our contexts, in our groups, in everything around us. It's inactive, meaning that wisdom that isn't demonstrated through doing something can't really be thought of as wisdom all that well. And lastly, it's extended. It's extended through the tools we use, through those same groups that we choose to affiliate with, but there's a multiplier effect. And so I think wisdom and cognition are both all of those 4 things.
So when somebody is exhibiting wisdom, where does that come from?
Well, I mean, I don't know a wise person who hasn't had some heartbreak.
Yes.
I don't know a wise person who hasn't had some pretty big reversals of fortune, who hasn't been. And we have the whole metaphor of those bad experiences potentially being a crucible where we can actually forward something better. Again, it's back to metabolizing. What do we do with all those experiences? Do we just let them make us embittered? Do we let them prevent us from exploring? What are we going to, it's going to happen. So what are you going to do with it? If you can see it as fodder, if you can see it as a crucible and as, use all the metaphors. I like to mix metaphors in really weird ways all the time, but can those reversals be fuel? I think the answer is yes. And I think it's not so much what happens, but what are you going to do with it?
Yeah. I think that's a really important point, is that all of us have bad things that happen to us in our life. And how many of us ask a very simple question, which is one of my favorite. What did I learn?
Josh, that was just right where I was going. Wisdom is better questions, not having all the answers.
Yes. I don't think there's anything about having the answers that makes you wise. I think it's by asking better questions that you become wise, and then you can share your wisdom through that method.
Well, it's moral development, being able to, we all grow up and everything is, and at the right point, we start learning the norms of our culture and the groups that we act in and everything. But then the next step is to be able to norm the norms, to think critically about the norms and go, well, I can see why this would be a norm and how maybe 98% of the time, that's really the thing to do. We shouldn't spend too much of our life over indexing on edge cases, but there are edge cases, and to be able to discern what's going on with an edge case so that we can pull back and say, wait a second.
When you say an edge case, what do you mean by that, Adam?
Well, in any, the normal, the bell-shaped curve, the normal distribution, that applies to so much of life. We're going totally nerdy here, but there is the mean, and that's where, we learn an awful lot from. But I'm always interested in if there's an examination of the tails in the normal distribution, it's human nature kind of to the negative tail, to the underperforming tail, and put a lot of attention there. But I've always, it's interesting that there's the high performing tail and a tail. I'm from a part of the country that doesn't make the distinction between TAIL and TELL. Sorry about that. But what's happening at the high perform, the term that's come out with some folks who've done some work here is positive deviance. And so what's going on So these are people who face most of the same conditions, situations, and everything as everyone else in the distribution, but for whatever reason, they just get more out of it. They do produce better results.
Well, the reason is I believe, and I may be wrong about this, but I believe that when one focuses on what's working, you get much better results than when one focuses on what's not working.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I have lived that for my entire business career. And it's one of the tenets that I've lived by for a long time, is that, somebody makes a mistake. I don't ask them why. I ask them, what did we learn?
Yeah. And it's from the whole strengths, work, we all have these individual strengths, and too much in business and too much in life, effort is placed on what your deficiencies are. And you need to shore up your deficiencies just to the point where it's like drilling a hole in the hull of a boat. If you have a hole below the water line, yeah, you dang well better plug up that hole quickly and put some real effort on that, because that's life threatening. But if the hole in your hull is, 20 feet above the water line, it may not be all that great looking, but, focus more on what is working well. And the greatest gains are going to come from focusing on your strengths and building on what you're already good at and becoming increasingly just
I have asked this question to business owners and non-business owners for 30 years. What's more important, focusing on your strengths or fixing your weaknesses? And it is absolutely fascinating. The answer is that almost 100% of employees say fixing weaknesses.
Yeah.
And almost 100% of owners say magnifying strengths.
Oh, is that interesting?
It's very interesting, and I think I know why.
Because they've been
owners have they control their own destiny.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're working for somebody, the owner controls your destiny.
Yes.
So it's really easy, because that's how we're brought up, is to focus on weaknesses and try to make them in the strengths, and that never works well.
No, no matter how much I would have worked on it, I was good at math, but the idea that I would have really excelled as an accountant, please.
Somehow I don't see you as an accountant, but that's okay.
No.
So Adam, unfortunately, we are out of time. So my question is, I know that you're a principal at Ideas to Go, and it's a really interesting company. You work with the top 50 Fortune 50 companies with brand development. Am I correct?
Well, and so it's innovation, everything from new products, new services, to new communications, to whatever. Yeah.
So you're a perfect person to do that sort of work.
Well, you're very and look, I feel so lucky to have found, when as a man in my later 20s, it finally became clear to me that I could actually do an entire career in innovation. I just thought, if I could, why wouldn't I? It's clearly where I should go.
Makes sense to me. So Adam, how would someone find you if they wanted to find you?
Oh, please. Happy to connect with anyone on LinkedIn. Just Adam Hansen, Hansen. This face is on the profile. So that's, I'm sorry to reiterate that, but also happy to just connect via email, adam.hansen@ideastogo.com, spelled out, no numeral, 2 for the to go. But I love engaging. I love talking about innovation. I love talking about the specific variant of innovation that we practice called behavioral innovation, which is the connection with behavioral science. And so life's too good not to work with great people on important projects.
My personal mission is to do interesting things with interesting people.
Totally it.
No, so I have 2 things I'd like you to do.
You bet.
One is please rate and review this show. If you loved it, give us 5 stars. If you hated it, give us 1 star. And I'll just cry a little bit, and I may even do it on camera so you can be amused, but probably not. And the second thing is, if this topic or any of the topics we've talked about in the Long Strange Trip podcast tickle your interest, send me an email at jpatrick@stage2solution.com. That's the number 2, and solution is singular. jpatrick@stage2solution.com. And we'll set up a time to talk and see if the Long Strange Trip podcast is right for you. So this is Josh Patrick. We're with Adam Hansen. You're at the Long Strange Trip podcast. Thanks a lot for stopping by. I hope you come back again and visit us. It'll be a lot of fun.
Josh, thanks so much. See ya.
Thanks for spending this time with me today. I really appreciate you being part of this journey. I'd be grateful if you'd leave an honest rating and review. It helps other people find these conversations, lets me know what's landing with you and what isn't. If you love the show, give us 5 stars. And if you hate it, give it 1 star and I'll just cry a little bit. Keep asking the hard questions. Keep being honest about what's difficult. And remember, we're all just trying to figure this out together. I'll talk to you next time on the Long Strange Trip. Thanks for stopping by.